I hope you noted that today's gospel was the Lucan version of Bartimaeus, which I read last Sunday. We are all, at times, sinners. On every day, we have opportunities where we may turn away from sin. But we don't. We are human. So we sin. Sometimes we choose openly to be sinners. We choose to skip Sunday services by watching football or sleeping late or doing absolutely nothing productive. That is the sin of idolatry. You put anything before God or put anything higher than God, and you make it an idol for you. Other times, we sin by circumstance. We see a person we care about fundraising for an organization for which we find reprehensible. Thus, it alters our feelings for that person in an instant. We drive by and just honk at the former flame, not giving money to this reprehensible charity, but also not being honest. Here, the lack of honesty is a circumstance of society, but it is a general and generous sin. For honesty here would be cruel. We must balance. Not being honest was far better than telling this person what you thought of the charity or what you thought because that person was acting on behalf of that charity. One must never be cruel or intentionally mean, unless to do so serves a greater purpose. In other words, to shock them to awareness that their actions aren't secret, but being conducted in a very public manner and are a topic of many conversations. As the Saviour said, nothing whispered in the dark today will remain hidden. Tomorrow it will be shouted on the rooftops in the daylight. Well, this may not stop their use of addicted drugs or using people for a high, conducting relationships with people who are dangerous to their mental health. But those are symptoms of their disease and a sign that they should be reported to trained professionals, either in your county, to law enforcement, or to private mental health services, if there are funds available. Professionals who do interventions are paid and trained to say shocking things to the sick, addicted, and the mentally unstable people. These that are trained in how to do it, when to do it, so that no one is harmed in any way. As a professional counselor, we are trained extensively to do this sort of work. We have 1 year of just this kind of work. And as a counselor, we are required to have our own therapist. And most all of us have also a spiritual advisor, so that we don't end up burdened with another person's pain or taking another's sins upon ourselves. No person not trained should ever attempt these things, for the hazard to your person and the risk to your soul is far, far too great. Being a follower of Christ carries an obligation to us. When I did this professionally, I found my way to health by spending more time outside, spending more time with my horses, because they were my counselor. They kept me in touch with God, because I could tell my horses anything. They never, ever lied. They never told anybody. And those little boys and little girls, they were such great listeners. And they gave fabulous advice as well. Because working in the outdoors, I felt God around me. I sensed God in every step of my pony, in every kick of my pony, in every buck of my pony. I knew that God spoke to me through my animals, because I didn't say a word to them, but they followed me everywhere. Sometimes I'd be walking across the pasture and there'd be 10 or 12 horses walking behind me. And we would have a little counseling session, the 12 of them and me. I missed them very, very, very much. Just like any relationship, there is work that must be done. Don't shirk at the relationships with the people who have mental health disorders, with their spouse or friends who are using alcohol or drugs to an excess. A relationship that is romantic, but you realize the person is using sex as a drug. He or she is having numerous sexual relationships outside of the major one. For instance, maybe you find out he or she is actually married. Time for you to hit the road. Time also for you to have a chat with somebody, because perhaps that person has someone in his care or in her care to be with you. They're not taking care of their responsibilities. That could be child neglect. It could be vulnerable adult neglect. So much happens that we don't want to hear, that we don't want to see. But as Christian adults, we must be responsible for all of our actions and all of the consequences of those actions. And thus, we must be aware of everything around us. Don't pull an ostrich. Worse, don't pull a bleeding duck. You think ostriches bury their heads and have that great big behind of theirs sticking up? No, but ducks, they do that because they're eating the grubs and they're eating other insects under the dirt. So do geese. And they've got that behind sticking up. They're unaware of anything around them. So don't be a duck. And don't be a goose either. Know about the person with whom you're having a relationship. I'm a licensed private investigator. If you want me to do a background search, I can do that. Don't shirk at any relationship. It's the most loving and fulfilling of them all combined. Christ will never reject you and never not respond to a question. He is always there, and he always loves you. Peace to all.